I never imagined I'd find myself in such an incredibly awkward and heartbreaking situation. It all started with a random number texting me out of nowhere. At first, I wasn't sure what to make of it, but then the messages began to feel more and more like something wasn't right. The texts were vague at first, but the longer the conversation went on, the more uncomfortable I became. This person asked if I was comfortable with the idea of hooking up with someone who was already in a relationship. I tried to brush it off, thinking it was some kind of prank or mistake, but the hints kept coming. It didn't sit right with me, especially since they said things like, "We're in the same age group, live nearby, you know?" In my gut, I had this terrible feeling that I knew exactly who this was. I didn't want to believe it, but something told me it was someone I knew well. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but this feeling only grew stronger, especially after the person used an emoji that no one in my social circle used, except for one person. My heart sank. And then the message came. He mentioned a memory I had shared only with this guy, a memory that no one else knew about. That's when I realized it was him, my best friend's husband, the man I had once considered a close friend, the man I trusted. I still wanted to be sure, so I tried to play it cool, but deep down, I was already horrified. The guy didn't come out and say his name directly, though. Instead, he kept hinting around it, trying to bait me into admitting that I was open to cheating. I kept pushing back, but then I gave in a little and lied to him, told him that if he could confirm his name, I'd be okay with it. I thought maybe, just maybe, he'd back off if I wasn't receptive. But no, he confirmed it. He said, "Yes, it's me. Are you okay with that?" I froze. I was speechless. My stomach dropped. This couldn't be happening. I couldn't believe it was him, the man I'd spent time with, the man I thought I knew. The husband of my best friend, the guy I had once called a friend, was trying to cheat on her with me. I quickly saved the screenshots of everything, the conversations, the details, everything. I didn't want to keep this to myself. I knew I had to tell my friend. Even though part of me felt like I was betraying her by sharing this, I knew I couldn't stay silent. She deserved to know. I texted her everything. I didn't want to face her in person at first because I knew how hard it would be for her to process. How could anyone believe that someone they loved and trusted would do something like this? Especially with someone they once considered a friend. I gathered all the evidence, all the proof. I even cross-referenced it with some explicit DMs he had sent me months ago, ones I hadn't known how to interpret back then. I honestly didn't know how to handle them at the time. They were weird, inappropriate, and made me uncomfortable, but I wasn't sure how to respond. When I read them again, though, everything changed. They weren't just strange messages. They were explicit texts from him, saying things like, "I want to fuck your brains out," and other graphic comments that now seemed all too clear in hindsight. But when I shared everything with her, I was shocked by her response. She read through the screenshots and the messages, and after all that, she still refused to believe it. She said, "It doesn't prove anything. You didn't even hear his voice." The voice, she said, was the only thing that could truly prove it. The texts and messages she dismissed as a mistake, as if they didn't matter because I didn't call him to hear his voice. She couldn't wrap her head around it. And I get it. It's a lot to process. Nobody wants to believe that their spouse, someone they've trusted and loved, would do something like this. But no matter how many times I tried to show her, she wouldn't see the truth. At that point, I just had to let it go. I didn't know how much more I could say to make her understand. The truth was staring her in the face, but she wasn't ready to accept it. It felt like she was in denial, and honestly, I don't blame her. The emotional toll this situation was taking on me was immense, but I couldn't force her to see what was happening. I wanted so badly for her to believe me, to understand that I was trying to help, but I also realized that this wasn't just about me. It was about her, and about how much she was willing to face the uncomfortable reality of what her husband had done. After everything, I felt like our friendship was shattered. It's hard to come back from something like this. How can I be close to someone who refuses to believe the truth about their own partner? It's painful. I wanted to be there for her, but I also realized that I couldn't keep carrying this weight alone. It felt like no matter what I did, I wasn't going to win. I didn't want to lose her as a friend, but how could I continue to be around, knowing what I knew? This experience has left me feeling emotionally drained and confused. I thought I was doing the right thing, and maybe I was, but it's so hard to see someone you care about in so much denial. Her husband didn't just betray her trust, he tried to betray me too. And even though I had the evidence, even though I had proof, it didn't seem to matter to her. So, now here I am. Our friendship is probably over, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to repair it. I've done everything I could to help, but it feels like it wasn't enough. She's still married to a cheater who told me that he wished he had met me first. That was the final blow. How could she stay with someone who had no respect for her or for me? It's all so messed up. But I have to move on. I've done what I can, and now I just have to live with the fact that sometimes people aren't ready to face the truth, no matter how much you want them to.